Hello everyone, welcome to another Grimgar video. In today's video, we're going to review Volume 8 of Grimgar, Fantasy and Ash. This is actually going to be the last review I do for a little while. I need to take a bit of a break from reading the light novels, mainly because I don't want to get burnt out on them. But don't worry, I'm going to continue making Grimgar videos. I'm just not going to read the light novels quite as hard as I was for a little while now. And I plan on making videos on other fantasy stories as well, like Furin, Beyond Journey's End. But if you enjoy light novel reviews or fantasy reviews, please hit the like button, share, tell me in the comments down below what other stuff you want me to talk about. But let's get started with Grimgar, Fantasy of Ash, Level 8. And so we wait until tomorrow. So this is one of the volumes where the writer seems to experiment with multiple POVs and multiple characters throughout the entire book. And they also go backwards in time and switch POVs to like let you know what's going on with other characters while something's going on with like Haru, or it's just a whole lot of POV switching, and it is kind of messy, admittedly. Not in a really bad way, I enjoyed my time with it, but it makes it messy for me to talk about in this video. So I'm going to organize the structure of the story, and I'm going to kind of just like put everything in a linear fashion. This is not how the story is presented, by the way, but this is how I'm going to present it in the video for my own sanity's sake. So before Haru and his friends even get back to Grimgar, which is where we left off in the last book, we're going to talk about these fun, wacky kids in the hidden village. One is a young woman called Arara, and the other one is named Tatsuru. Both these young teenagers grew up together in the hidden village. Tatsuru is not the best warrior in the village. Actually, he's kind of crap. And Arara is very adequate in combat, and the village itself really heavily focuses on people being good in combat, and this kind of like gives you your station in the village. So if you have less combat skills, you're going to be looked down upon. If you have more combat skills, you're going to be praised, and people are going to like you. However, Arara really likes Tatsuru. She loves his personality, and she likes that he's always trying harder to get ahead of people, but sadly, he's not great at it. One day, she actually confesses to him and wants him to marry her. And Tatsuru does something that I can only describe as lawful stupid. Which, by the way, if you don't know D&D, go look up what lawful stupid is. It's exactly what he does. Essentially, they have a rule in the village where if you want to get married, you have to kind of ask the parents. And usually it's like the males have to do this to get the girls to marry them. And that's what he does. He asks her parents, who are some of the heads of the village, if he can marry her. And again, due to the fact that he's got basically horrible street cred for not having any good technique with swords, they just laugh at him and just say no. Mind you, this is all behind Arara's back. She didn't want to tell her parents because she knew exactly what would happen. She actually wanted to elope with him and get the hell out of the village because the village is kind of a very toxic environment. But Tatsuru, who again is a fucking idiot, instead of actually listening to Arara, decides, hey, I'm gonna prove everyone wrong by going out and fighting this giant thing called Arnold, who is the thing that's been killing people from our village, who is basically a four-armed undead monstrosity. I'm gonna kill him and come back and be a hero. And Tatsuru was never seen again because he died, because he's a fucking idiot. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if the story is trying to make this into a joke or not, but I found it hilarious. I laughed so hard. And now we're gonna switch to present time, where the story actually starts off on. Haru and his friends are coming back from Grimgar, and they are heading into Grimgar. And for some reason, the writer decides to start Volume 8 with another Haru going on a mental tangent about how much of a bad leader he actually is, ignoring the fact that he just got his friends out of a fucking other world where they almost died, and he led them together, and he saved all their lives. Trust me when I say I understand that Haru's entire character is built on him basically being a really insecure guy who's trying to grow into his, like, role as a good leader, and this is very consistent with his character throughout the entire story. But you gotta start pacing these things out better. Like, Haru has an entire mental breakdown at the end of the last book we just finished reviewing. If you want to do this, do it later on, because he had a very good spot later on to add more of this into it, which I'll get to, but, like, there was no reason for him to be, like, hating himself right after he saved all of his friends, basically, from Grimgar. Like, I don't get it. I mean, I do. I have mental problems too. I get depressed, but like, it's not the greatest thing to read, especially when you just open up the volume. Granted, it could also be because I've been reading the books over and over again, and it's harder on me personally because I'm binging these. But after all of Haru's self-deprecating thoughts, they all set up a small little camp area where they all talk and decide they need to start like kind of scouting out the place, and they realize that they're really far away from Alterna. So Haru decides that he should probably scout out the area with Yume. To Ranta's dismay, because of course Ranta's a just little bitch. From this point forward, the story is going to switch between Haru's party's POV constantly. But I'm not going to switch back and forth constantly because that's going to be a nightmare. So I'm going to do Haru's POV with Yume, then I'm going to do Mary and Ranta's POV, and then I'm going to do Shihiro, and Kuzuku. But Haru and Yume go on a whole scouting adventure where they eventually meet up with some other volunteer soldiers. First they meet Kuro, and Kuro is this guy who is basically a hunter turned warrior, and for the most part he's a pretty chill guy. He gives Haru and Yume the download that everyone has basically assumed that Haru's party has been dead this entire time, but he's super happy to see that they are all alive. For the record, by the time this video is out, I've already done a video talking about every character from the Typhoon Rocks. If you guys want to check out those shorts, click the upper right corner or check the description or the comment section. Kuro insists that Haru and Yume actually go with him so they can meet up with his party members, and Haru does actually go with them. They meet up with Mayuri, which is their Dread Knight, and Mayuri is actually fighting a bunch of orcs with his demon summon. And Mayuri has a bit of a sus moment with Yume where he tries to kind of make out with her. FBI, open up! Don't worry, Haru shuts it down real fucking quick. They then go look for the rest of their party, and they meet up with Kajira, which is, surprise, another warrior, and they also meet up with Rock, their leader. Rock is currently fighting alongside Arara while they're trying to fight against Arnold, the four-armed undead that killed Totoro. It turns out Arara is trying to get revenge on Arnold, and Rock is trying to help her because he is quote-unquote in love with her. But after Haru, Yume, and the rest of the Typhoon Rocks get into some fights with a bunch of orcs, they get together and start making plans on meeting back up with Haru's party after they explore some more of the area to see if they can find any more of the military group that is with Arnold, the four-armed undead. Back at their small little campsite, Ranta starts kind of throwing a hissy fit because they're taking way too long, and Ranta's brain starts going into a bit of a, oh, they're probably making out somewhere in the woods kind of thing. You know, he's just being a jealous little shit. But Mary agrees that it's been a little too long, and then she goes out with Ranta to look for Haru and Yume. Mary is just worried that they're in danger or they're hurt. And throughout this entire section with Ranta, it kind of lets you know that Ranta's a little confused about being a leader, because he's trying to take charge of kind of deciding where to go with Mary, and he's actually hit with some indecision, I can't even say the word. He can't decide what to do in certain situations, and he's starting to kind of see how Haru feels when he's trying to make choices for his party. Ranta even tries to summon Zodiac, and Zodiac kind of makes fun of him, denies him, and then leaves. And Ranta actually felt kind of depressed about that, funny enough. While looking for Haru and Yume, they eventually get caught and captured by Forgin, which is the faction and army that is associated with Arnold. While they're actually imprisoned, we switch between Mary's POV and Ranta's POV. Mary is completely terrified of what could happen to her because she is a lady in an entire army full of creepy undead monsters, orcs and humans and half-elves and dark elves and halflings and dwarves. This entire army is very diverse. And while imprisoned, a man called Takagashi, who is a one-eyed, one-armed samurai, confronts Ranta and Mary. He heavily implies horrible things could happen to Mary if they don't actually give them information, and Ranta goes out of his way to make sure that he doesn't get anything. But he does want to challenge him to a fight. If Ranta wins, they get set free. Takagashi accepts, and the next fight that goes on is kind of a one-sided slaughter. Ranta cannot lay a finger on Takagashi. Mary even goes out of her way to cheer for Ranta, and feels really bad that Ranta is not able to even touch this guy. It's actually not a bad fight, honestly, because you can see how fast Ranta actually is when he actually shuts up and tries. But ultimately, Ranta couldn't do anything, and he actually kowtows and asked to join Forgin, which was probably one of the funniest moments because Mary's jaw drops and her eyes almost pop out of her head in sheer surprise. Ranta full-on just betrays the entire party here. And I have thoughts about this moment and about Ranta's entire plan, which, for the record, he's an idiot, but he is ultimately doing this to save himself and Mary. The way he goes about it is incredibly stupid, though. But Ranta overall wants Takagashi to train him and be his master and teach him how to be as strong as he is. The leader of Forgin, Jumbo, actually accepts this. He lets Ranta join, and he has no real problem if Mary wants to join either. But Mary is so loyal to Haru and his party that she would rather die than join them, even if it's just to keep herself alive and lie about it. Ranta keeps trying to get her to just say that she'll join or say that she is his woman just so he can essentially be a shield to keep her from getting harassed or hurt by the monsters in Forgin. But Mary completely and utterly refuses. While Mary and Ranta are actually gone, Shihiro and Kuzuku actually have a down-to-earth conversation. Shihiro picks up on the fact that Kuzuku had feelings for Mary, and Kuzuku kind of gets the idea that maybe the girls in the party don't really see him as an adult, and they kind of just look down on him as like a younger brother kind of thing, which is kind of accurate, unfortunately. While they're talking, a man called Katasuharu, I'm going to call him Kat, honestly, because my dyslexic brain will die every time I try to say that name, kind of sneaks up on them. They're completely caught off guard and honestly really frightened. Kat is trying to actually let them know that he's chill. He's a chill guy. He's just looking for his niece. Turns out that Aurora is this guy's niece, and he's looking for her and trying to bring her back to the village to make sure that she's okay. For the record, Kat is probably the chillest guy in this book, and I actually really like him. He's a sweetheart. He gives off favorite uncle vibes super hard. But he lets them know that most likely their friends have possibly been captured by Forgan, because the army is around, and that's probably why they've gone missing. But Kat decides to help Chihiro and Kuzuku by looking for the rest of their friends. He knows the area, and he thinks he can actually help find them if they help him find his niece afterwards. So they go with them, and unfortunately, out of nowhere, they realize that they are surrounded by things that are called Ne. Ne are these, like, cat creatures that are kind of super intelligent, and they realize that Forgan is after them, and they have something called a Beastmaster in Forgan, and that is what's controlling the Ne. These Ne are essentially scouts, and they actually report back to Forgan. They are eventually cornered, and some of Forgan's soldiers, including Ranta and Takagashi, actually confront them. Ranta wastes no time and actually asks specifically to fight Kuzuku and Chihiro. He actually leaps right at Kuzuku and actually wounds his arm a little bit by stabbing his sword into his arm. The skirmish doesn't last very long before they have to actually retreat because they realize that they have backup coming from the Typhoon Rocks. So Takagashi decides that they ultimately need to move away and retreat. Before they do, Haru actually tackles Ranta and asks what the heck is his problem and what's going on, and Ranta gives very vague information to Haru, something along the lines of him no longer being a part of Haru's party and that Mary is his woman now, and he tells Haru he dares him to come and get her, implying that she is safe and she is somewhere in Forgan's camp. This was information that was specifically given to Haru so Haru can put two and two together to realize that Mary is still alive. Haru and his party with the Typhoon Rocks and Kat and Aurora actually head back to the outskirts of the Hidden Village where they actually recuperate and form up a plan. Aurora is taken by the Hidden Village, and essentially she's disowned by her her family's terrible, but they're disowning her essentially, and her hair gets cut to show that she is essentially banished from the village. The Typhoon Rocks and Haru's party decide to actually form up a plan to deal with Forgan. First, they need to deal with the Ne army, which is just a whole bunch of thousands of scouts, and Kat lets them all know that there is somebody in the Hidden Village who also has a Ne army as well. She's a necromancer called Satora, and Haru decides to visit Satora. There, Haru and Satora actually come up with a deal that will have him give up an eye if Satora agrees to help Haru and his party. She agrees, and they actually make a deal, and eventually she's gonna come for his eye. But she lets him have it until after the mission is complete. She agrees to take out the entirety of the Ne scouting army that Forgan has with her own Ne army. The next day, they actually go get Aurora, who is essentially left out in the open for Forgan to kill because the Hidden Village is just a bunch of horrible people. But she has no weapons, she's tied up, and her hair chopped off, and she's in a kimono dress thing. They set her free, arm her, and then they get ready to fight Forgan. Initially, she planned on actually fighting Arnold by herself, but Rock insists that he fights Arnold instead. I want to remind everyone that Rock is currently sitting at a 5'2", and this motherfucker decides to fight a four-armed undead who is like 7 feet tall. But Rock ultimately challenges Arnold to a 1v1, and they go at it, and it goes hard. Rock is incredibly fast and powerful, and Arnold is just terrifying. But while they are fighting, Haru decides that it's a good idea to actually vanish and go look for Mary. So he uses stealth, and one of the Typhoon Rocks takes his place in front of the party. Haru sneaks away and finds Mary in one of the camps, and Haru has to stab a halfling, I think, because the way it's described, it sounds like a halfling, and he sets Mary free. Ranta actually shows up then and there because he knew that Haru was going to pull this, and he tries to challenge Haru to a 1v1 as well. Haru cannot believe that Ranta's this stubborn and this stupid, and they actually end up getting into a fight. The fight actually is kind of interesting. It's not as hardcore and badass as like Rock versus Arnold, but this fight shows you just how well they know each other. They both go back and forth being one step ahead of each other, and they know how each other fights. So it's more or less a very even fight, funny enough. Ranta definitely has the advantage just because his entire class is built more on combat than Haru's is, but Haru does a pretty good job of like avoiding dying. Ultimately, Haru has to rely on assault, and he quickly uses assault at the very moment that Haru gets a chance to use it. He bashes away Ranta's longsword and quickly activates Assault and beats the ever-loving crap out of Ranta. He even stabs him in the shoulder with his stiletto, which for the record, the stiletto is pretty thick enough to make a pretty big hole in the shoulder. And if it wasn't for Mary crying out, Haru would have probably killed Ranta. And Mary and Haru actually decide to run away. Takagashi is watching Ranta fight and realizes that they're going to move, so he was going to stop them from leaving until Kuru actually shot arrows at him to make it so he couldn't actually chase after them. Haru and Mary meet up with Kuru, and Kuru tells them to meet back up with their friends, and he tells them the exact directions they need to go. And that is essentially where the light novel actually ends. This light novel is so jam-packed full of stuff that I know this video is going to be huge, and I'm going to do my best to edit it down. I hope this video is not out too late, but overall, I think this is a really fun light novel. I will say that due to the fact that this light novel came at the point where my burnout started to start up for Grimgar light novel reading, it is probably better than I feel like it is. But honestly, the light novel starting off with Haru just complaining about himself again really made it hard to get past that one section because it lasted a while actually. But if you know me, I love POV switching in the Grimgar light novels. I really enjoy when they switch back and forth and give different characters different moments to actually shine. And this book gave a lot of the characters more insight, and you can actually see how they feel. The whole Ranta betraying Haru's party thing is such a complicated topic. He ultimately did it to save himself and Mary, but he just, as Ranta does, goes too far with it, but he planned things out about as crappily as he could have. The next light novel is going to go more into Ranta's feelings on the subject, and I'll actually probably make another video talking about Ranta betraying the party and going into more detail about it. I like the fact that this book also has a lot of world building for the world of Grimgar. You get to see a lot more of the different species, a lot more of the hidden village, even though the hidden village is kind of just a horrible place to live in. And as far as themes go, the themes of this book is straight up just how far you're willing to go for people you care about. Arara is straight up going out of her way to get revenge on Arnold for killing the dude she had a crush on. I guess Rock is also a part of this because he's doing so much for Arara. Cat is also doing a lot for Arara because he cares about her and loves her. And you see how much Haru is willing to do for his entire party to the point where he's willing to give up an eye for Mary. Ranta is willing to betray the party if it means keeping himself and Mary safe. And I do like that theme. It's actually very interesting. But overall, I very much enjoyed this book. But keep in mind that I did feel my burnout in this book. So it might be better than I'm going to actually give it a score for. I'd have to say, honestly, I'd have to give this book an A- or an A. Specifically because it introduces characters like Arara and Cat, and quite frankly, they're never utilized ever again. In the next book, they just kind of disappear and you never see from them ever again. But aside from Cat having this fun, nice uncle energy and having some personality, Arara's just kind of pointless. She's a nothing burger character, honestly. And having to go through an entire chapter where just her POV, I just could not care. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Before I end this video, I have to give a special thank you to our subscribers over on our Twitch. If you want your chance to have your name at the end of these videos, either use the thanks feature here over on YouTube or subscribe to our Twitch. I've started just flat out putting every subscriber I have over on my Twitch instead of actually just switching them out every week. I'm just gonna put everyone up. But thank you for making it this far, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great night. Bye.